Breaking news, Sony leaks the A7R VI, their 100 to 400 G Master lens, which will change sports and wildlife photography. Fuji leaks the new upcoming X-T6. Canon leaks the R7 Mark II, perfect for wildlife photographers. And Nikon has a new CEO that will blow your mind. Also, an AI picture gets involved in a fight between Trump and the Pope. I'll tell you all about it, but first I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. Head to squarespace.com/Tony when you need any kind of presence on the web. If you have a new business, squarespace.com/Tony. If you have a personal project that you want to share, squarespace.com/Tony. I use it for my photography portfolio and it makes everything look great, so much better than social media possibly could. It allows me to have a store and to sell workshops and prints. You can try it out completely free. Go to squarespace.com/Tony and see how it makes everything you're doing look amazing. Your own custom domains, your own custom email address, your own independence from social media. When you love it, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. Thank you, Squarespace. First, Nikon has a new CEO, Silicon Valley veteran Sasha Kincaid. Her background is in mobile development and technology, and this is a big shift for Nikon, who seems to be positioning themselves to take on a younger market, to reclaim some of those sales lost to... I'm totally kidding. The new CEO is Yasuhiro Omura. He's a 30-year veteran of Nikon, and he's making it pretty clear that it's going to be business as usual at Nikon. Their objectives are to meet and exceed customer needs and aspirations, improve cost efficiency and the speed at which we deliver our products, and advance the precision and resilience of our products. He seems great. I'm sure he knows what he's doing. But I'm a little bit disappointed because right now Nikon products are, even as somebody who reviews cameras, essentially indistinguishable from Sony and Canon products. But Nikon is in third place. They're kind of doing the exact same thing, but not quite as successfully. And I think there's a lot of room for Nikon to make some real progress by doing something different and putting a new CEO in, maybe with a background in technology, mobile development, AI. That could have really made a difference in the overall company. So it's not the Japanese way. I get it. This is their corporate heritage. He's a very logical choice, a very safe choice, and I'm sure he'll be just fine. And I'm sure everybody who's been a lifelong Nikon fan is relieved to know that it will keep going in the same direction. In other Nikon news, they currently have a conflict with some Chinese lens manufacturers who want to make Z-mount lenses, but don't want to pay the licensing fees, and so there's a lawsuit around it. This is pretty much exactly the same thing that's happening with Canon, where you can make third-party lenses for Canon RF mount, but you need to pay Canon a little bit, right? They gotta get their beak wet. Sony E-mount pretty much lets anybody make lenses for the platform, and so it ends up being a pretty huge advantage for Sony. Nikon's been a little looser than Canon, but still doesn't have that Sony advantage. Up next, Sony leaks the A7R VI specs. If you aren't familiar, the Sony A7R is Sony's high-resolution camera. It distinguishes itself from other cameras by having a really high megapixel sensor, having no AA filter, and this makes it perfect for especially landscapes, astrophotography. I love it for portraits, so you don't necessarily need the extra resolution. But up until now, it's been a little weak at moving subjects because that big sensor, well, took a long time to read out. And thus, things took a little bit of time to get into focus. Video had a lot of rolling shutter. Rumors are saying the next generation of this is going to have a 67 megapixel sensor. And my own personal guess is that this is going to be a stacked sensor that has a very fast readout speed. But the specs sort of support this. Like it's going to be able to do 8K at 30 frames per second, oversampled from a full 10K video feed. And that means necessarily it has a much, much faster readout speed than the existing camera. The video specs are one thing. I think that the thing most people will care about is just better autofocus. Having tested this for wildlife, especially where you want those high megapixels, I found the autofocus to be a little bit insufficient. And using the electronic shutter created a lot of rolling shutter. And as a result, I always recommended the Sony A1 over the Sony A7R series for those cameras. Even though a lot of people get great results with it, it just had some challenges. Here, the stills will rival the big brother, the A1, doing 30 frames per second with the electronic shutter. That's absolutely shocking. And like, what's left to get the A1? I guess the A1 will probably have a bigger buffer, which will make it better for these things. Maybe the autofocus system will be a little bit more powerful. But I think for most photographers, based on this is going to be a big recommendation, especially because it seems to be offering 16 bits of dynamic range, sort of mirroring the technological advancements that Sony introduced in the A7 V. So that should make your landscape pictures even better. And the IBIS is supposed to be even better, though I don't know. They always quote these huge numbers that my testing never bears out. I'm excited to see what they have come out, if this is true at all. I have no inside information. They also leaked some information about the Sony A6900. This could be a 33 megapixel APS-C sensor. The A69 series, anything with 4 digits in the Sony numbers, is an APS-C camera, which is generally lower end, generally smaller. And while I don't necessarily recommend the APS-C cameras in Nikon or Canon format, Sony has a really good selection of lenses that allows you to get professional results. So you're not really limited by the sensor size in these cases. It, like the big A1, should have a full 30 frames per second, which only sports and wildlife photographers care about, but those that do would really enjoy it. And oversampled 4K 60 video that should look absolutely great, or 4K 120 with a 1.3 times crop. And again, they're bragging about better IBIS, which has been a weakness of Sony, so I'm excited to see that change. I will say Sony Alpha Rumors is warning us that this might not be true. Okay, but none of those specs are surprising. They're all absolutely attainable, and those are what we want. So I hope it is true, because we do really need some update in the Sony APS-C cameras. If you want to get better at photography, this upcoming Saturday, very soon now, I'm hosting a workshop right here in New York City, in Manhattan, and it's only $99. So join me and learn hands-on with a model, maybe 2, depending on how many tickets I sell, in the streets to get the most out of posing and lighting. We'll learn to balance ambient light and inexpensive flashes. You know, my studio workshops are usually very high-end, catered to professionals, but this one's more casual. So whether you want to learn professional portraiture or you just want to take better pictures of your family, join me and another photographer, and we'll walk you through the paces and improve your photography notably in just 3 hours. Can't wait to shoot with you. Sony also leaked an upcoming 100-400 f4 G-Master lens. The G-Master series of lenses are their high-quality professional-grade lenses, which tend to be very expensive. Now, they have a 100-400 now, but it's f4.5 to f5.6, so it's a full stop slower on the long end, and that full stop, it makes a big difference to a lot of professional photographers. F4 at 400 millimeters will get you really, really shallow depth of field, which, especially for sports photographers, really separates the subject from the background. It makes powerful, powerful images. It also reduces the amount of noise by a full stop. And that difference is the same as going from APS-C to full frame, basically. So you'll get cleaner, generally higher quality images. This is going to be expensive, though. I would guess that this is going to be about $12,000, and that's based on Canon's 200-400 f4, which is about $10,000. So they're giving you substantially more ability to zoom back, which is perfect for courtside and field sports. They're going to charge more, though. Sony also has a 105 megapixel medium format global shutter sensor, and that means everything reads out instantly, making it perfect for video work or, well, really any type of work. Now, I've been a Hasselblad shooter. I love these medium format sensors, and 100 megapixels is fantastic. So I really hope this makes it into a proper medium format camera for me, because up until now, the long readout speed has meant poor autofocus on these medium format cameras, but a literal global shutter would provide amazing autofocus and maybe pull a lot of people away from the full frame systems and from Sony systems specifically. Now, I also heard a rumor from somebody not online that Sony was actively developing their own medium format camera system. Consider that unsubstantiated. Somebody told me that and they sounded credible, but I don't know if I believe them. Either way, I would love to see this go into production. Canon leaked their R7 Mark II camera. The R7 is Canon's top-end APS-C camera. Again, that's the smaller sensor size, usually meant for lower end consumers, but because the R7 is at the top of that, it's really more optimized for sports and wildlife photographers, where the smaller sensor can actually have some benefits in some situations. Rumors are this new sensor is going to be 39 megapixels, which is pretty high megapixel for an APS-C camera, and it should have a very fast readout speed, much like its big brother, the R5 Mark II. Just like with the Sony A6900, that's going to give us mostly better autofocus and eliminate the rolling shutter problems that were a substantial problem in our own testing of the original R7 for things like wildlife, like panning shots of birds. Rumored to be able to shoot up to 40 frames per second with the electronic shutter, and it will be able to do a pre-capture. The stabilization should be better. As with the current one, it will have 2 card slots, so if a card fails, you have a backup of it. And of course, it's going to be more expensive, it's better, and we have tariffs and such. Fuji also leaked the upcoming X-T6. The X-T6 is their sort of vintage SLR style mirrorless camera, which I think is one of the most attractive cameras. It's also sort of the most general purpose camera that they've been keeping updated. It sounds like the sensor should be very similar at 40 megapixels, but it's doing 8K 30 video, so they must be using a sensor with pretty fast readout speed. It's also going to be able to shoot up to 60 frames per second. So this tells me that while the megapixels might be the same, the sensor itself is going to be quite a bit faster. They're suggesting the IBIS might be a little bit better. It's been a while since we saw Fuji really update their interchangeable lens cameras. They've been focusing so much of their time on things like the integrated lens X100 VI and their instant cameras. They're having great success with that. I can't blame them for focusing on that, but me, I miss the interchangeable lens cameras. Canon is doing something interesting. They showed a couple of analog concepts, like proper film camera concepts. And I love this for them because when I'm here in New York City, most of the photographers I see are shooting film. I would say 3 out of 4 photographers are shooting analog film cameras. So it's absolutely wild. If something 3 out of 4 photographers are using, Canon, Nikon, and Sony, none of them are addressing this market. Sony India had a huge slip up this month where they launched a new cute little squirrel character to be their mascot. But the problem is the whole thing's AI generated. And I don't know if you heard, Sony, people in the community here, we're not loving AI, and we kind of bash anybody who does use AI. I think it's a little silly because it's just a marketing campaign. They just hired some company to do this and they generated it with AI. This might seem like an obvious mistake, but AI images are now absolutely a key part of mainstream media. This past week, the President of the United States shared an AI image of himself rendered as what he describes as a doctor, though his outfit to me doesn't look much like a doctor. If the President of the United States is sharing AI images on his own social media feed, it's safe to say that this is in the mainstream. And at some point, we have to stop getting super upset and offended about it. The fact is, more and more, even in TV productions, I'm seeing a lot of AI-generated things, specifically crime documentaries, which tend to happen with very low budgets. Now they can use AI to render realistic scenes instead of actually having to recreate things. That allows them maybe to actually use the faces of the people involved and create just something that's actually more real rather than less real. And while I would love to fight this and keep more humans involved, keep more humans employed, they're not asking me. I'm just reporting what's actually happening. Speaking of the world getting screwed over, Adobe had a $150 million settlement. As you might recall, Adobe was getting sued for shady practices around people canceling. And if you tried to cancel or scale back your subscriptions to Adobe products in the last few years, you probably found it to be an absolute pain because, well, they didn't want you to cancel because then they would lose money. So they put up a bunch of really false barriers. Like it was very easy to subscribe to new services and damn near impossible to unsubscribe. They often charged penalties and things. So $150 million settlement sounds like a whole lot, but it is a tiny fraction of the profit that Adobe made. And thus it doesn't feel like punishment at all. To put $150 million into perspective, Adobe's annual revenue is $21.5 billion. So that number is substantially less than 1% of their annual revenue. Not to mention the fact that they're not just going to automatically credit your credit card with this money. In fact, most of that money will be paid out in the form of like free services if you manage to follow some links and opt into it likely. So the restitution they're offering customers they screwed over when the customer was canceling their services is free Adobe services. Does this make any sense? And I would bet you $1 million to get those free coupons that they're offering as restitution, you'd have to put in your credit card number and sign up for some additional services from Adobe. So it seems like absolute nonsense. But once again, the big corporations win, right? There are rumors that the iPhone 18 Pro cameras are going to have some interesting developments. First, the main camera, the 24mm equivalent, will have a variable aperture, which will allow you to shut it down a little bit and pull the background more into focus. Now, that aperture as it stands now is pretty wide. If you're focusing fairly up close on somebody, you get a decent amount of background separation, which is pretty amazing for a smartphone. So maybe they're having some people who decide they want to actually see the background. Now that will be an option, but for me, I never thought, oh, I want deeper depth of field here. It was never really a problem, so it's weird to me that they're putting that in, but maybe they just want to give people more control and give people a reason to upgrade, even if it's perceived and not necessarily practical. There's also rumors that they're going to be improving the telephoto lens. The 4X lens was a substantial improvement over the 5X lens in the iPhone 16 Pro, and I find myself using it on my 17 all the time. The telephoto lens here is fantastic, but if they make that better, I will be very happy, and that will be a big reason for me to upgrade. In the comments down below, I'd love to hear what you think. Are you excited about any of these new cameras? Do you think Nikon's going in the right direction by choosing traditional, or do you wish they would mix it up a little bit? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to check out my sponsor, Squarespace. Start at squarespace.com/Tony when you want to set up any kind of web presence. This could be a photography portfolio. This is by far the best way to make your pictures look great. If you're a videographer, it's a fantastic place to host your video reels and tell the world a little bit about yourself. You can get your own custom domain name, like I have northrupphotography.com. That means you can get your own custom email addresses, and you sound a lot more professional than somebody who's using gmail.com. Like, it might as well be AOL.com at this point, right? You don't have to trust me. Go to squarespace.com/Tony and try it out completely free. No credit card. They're not going to get you like Adobe did. If you love it, after your 14-day free trial, the coupon code Tony will save you 10%, but like, jump in there and see how easy it is to set up, see how they have tools that will make building an entire website, writing, creating images, doing the layout, the design, all of that is extremely easy and fast. So really, just try it out. I've had it for more than a decade and I love it. Thanks for sponsoring me, Squarespace. Bye.